Hey everybody, Jesse Doback here, and welcome to the Beyond Big Influence Show with me, your host, Jesse Doback, and I have an amazing guest on today. When I introduce you to this person that I'm about to introduce you to, you're probably not going to believe everything that he's accomplished in his career.
I don't believe it either.
He doesn't even believe it. So it's a lot of stuff, and it is amazing. So Mitchell Levy, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
Jesse, I'm great. I just work a lot, and I do things parallel versus serial. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the show. And guys, just so you know, Mitchell has published 60 books for himself, which means he's written 60 books and published them and launched them. And he's a best-selling author in several of these books. We're going to talk about that in a minute. He's also published over 800 books for other people and helped them publish them or publish them for his clients. And he's interviewed 500 thought leaders on credibility. That's what the show's about today, how to gain credibility in your business, in your life, so people know, like, and trust you, so you can move people into different categories and start like really networking at the highest level and start gaining credibility so you can get customers and clients and get success and move into different areas of putting yourself forward in life and not backwards. So Mitchell's going to talk about how he has done that, what he's learned in these interviews. And then when you interviewed the 500 people, then you launched a book about that, right? Too, or is that right?
Yeah. So the book comes out October 8th. The summit I'm running, which came out of the book, is the 9th and the 10th. So yes. Okay.
So he's got a book coming out soon. He's got a summit coming up where he's interviewing people. I'm going to actually be on the summit too. So it's amazing that, we're here today and we're going to interview you, Mitch. So thanks. Welcome to the show.
Good to be here, Jesse. I'm glad we connected. I'm a happy customer of your product, Influencersoft. So, happy to give a testimonial for that as well.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about a bunch of stuff. We're going to talk about influence today. I think credibility is a great part of influence. So it goes hand in hand. So it's a perfect fit. And so, but a little bit of your background. I mean, you didn't just wake up yesterday and you launched 60 books, wrote 60 books, published them and launched them for yourself. So can you give us a little background about how you got into being an entrepreneur and how you started your journey?
Oh, sure. And I'll change it slightly. I've written my 65th book is the one called Credibility Nation. Not all of the books are books that I actually have published myself. So I actually was published from a traditional New York publisher. I've had other people publish. And then once I started a publishing company in 2005, then I knew anything I write would get published. So I was undergrad. I love saying the title of my undergrad. It was a BS in stochastic and deterministic models of operational research. And every time I say it without flubbing it, like without the blooper stuff going on the side, I'm like so happy about that. In short, what I was taught in school, which I actually still use today, how do you model systems? How do you model people? And then how do you improve them? Mm-hmm. So I got an MBA and then I went to work. And the problem I had when I was working for other people is my first male mentor was somebody who was hedonistic and narcissistic. And so he taught me the wrong values. And so what happened is whenever anyone asked me a question for the 13 years I was in corporate, the way I answered it was the way I thought my boss wanted to hear it. So what I often say is I only stayed with him for a year, although I stayed with him for a year, or he was with me he actually stayed with me for 13 until I left corporate.
Yeah. Wow.
Once I left, I was running the e-commerce component of Sun Microsystems supply chain. It was $3.5 billion. Started my own management consulting firm in Silicon Valley in 1997. And that's when stuff really started taking off. I was doing the .com days. So I ran 4 different executive business programs at San Jose State, UC Santa Cruz. I was asked at that time to actually join the board of a public company. So I was on a company board for 9 years. I left as chairman of the board. I ended up, let's see what else was fun. Ran a CEO networking group for them for about 4 years. And
Awesome.
what I'll say as an entrepreneur, so to answer your question, how did I get there? It was during the dot-com days when this thing called the internet happened. Here's what I saw. So I was Jesse. So Esther Dyson called me Mr. E-commerce. I was that guy going around to VP of operations, going around to CEOs and saying, this is new technology. It will allow us to talk directly to customers. It will allow your supply chain manufacturers to be able to drop ship the products directly to your customers. And I know this is going to sound hard to believe. I was actually walked out of the door at some companies.
Oh, wow.
The internet's a fad. It's not going to happen, right? And so we know what happened. And so during that time, I had to do, so I was a guy as an entrepreneur, something interesting would come about and I would go and do it. So one of the things that happens if we're talking about influence and credibility, when I first started my consulting company, I was told, hey, listen, you got to write a book. So I did that. You got to teach at a university, did that. You got to speak from stage. They said, you got to do one of those three. I did all three. So I started teaching at San Jose State in the executive business program. And it turned out that I ended up getting so busy. At the time, it was $5,000 a day consulting, 7,500 keynotes. And I was so busy that I didn't have time anymore to work or to teach at San Jose State. They were paying $110 an hour, which is now huge for teaching and professional development. But I was making $550 an hour. So I went in. But here's what entrepreneurs do, right? We don't quit. So I went into the dean. I said, listen, I either have to figure out how to do more. By the way, I had no time. I have to figure out how to do more or do less. So that was my polite way of quitting. What I was told was, why don't you create an executive business program? I go, oh, okay. I said, give me 3 weeks. Let me come back. So scheduled the appointment, came back 3 weeks later. Here's what I said. We're going to start 9 months from now. I'm going to create 30 courses. I'm going to create up a standard template that we put people to. And this was at the time where people were still trying to figure out what e-commerce was. So the program was the e-commerce management program. I said, and now here's what really blew them away. I said, I don't want you to pay me a thing. Just give me 25% of the door.
Oh, wow.
They laughed at me, right? The reason they laughed was they never had anyone be successful before.
Yeah.
And so they just thought I was working for free and being stupid. And then when we sold over 4,400 courses and took in over 2 million, they regretted having to write checks.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's a university mindset. Like this was over $2 million of revenue they would not have had otherwise.
Yeah.
And they don't want to thank the hand that feeds them.
Yeah. So they wrote you a check for how much money?
25% of over 2 million.
Oh, wow. So like 500, like 500.
Yeah, it's a $500,000, but it was more than that. It was over time.
Okay.
Right. So because it wasn't a bad place to start. I did a similar deal with Comdex, which was the largest conference at the time. They have since gone out. With the .bomb stuff, what happened during the .com days is I remember going to a meeting where somebody from Accenture stood up and said, "We're hiring, and if you could spell the word e-commerce, you're hired." And that was mostly the truth. Okay. and then what happens is, and 2 lessons from entrepreneurship that came was when the .bomb came. The .bomb was, towards the end of 2000. And all of a sudden, the entire world said, oh, we don't like e-commerce. It's not going to happen. All the big stocks disappeared. It turns out that my speaking and consulting, because I was focused on e-commerce or e-business, went to zero overnight.
Yeah.
Zero overnight. Right. So I learned 2 lessons. First one's most important. It wasn't me. I didn't do anything wrong. Right. It was just the world changed.
Yeah.
Now, of course, we know that e-commerce came back with a vengeance, but it was just the reaction to things getting overinflated. The second lesson I learned is that you need to always have multiple revenue streams. So at the time, one of my former students from the San Jose State program came to me and said, Mitchell, I'm creating a CEO networking group. I want you to be a partner. I'll give you a third of the company. You don't have to do any work, because he had one other partner. I'm like, I was silly. I said, yeah, of course. Just so you know, if you're part of a networking company, you can't not work. You have to network.
Yeah.
Right?
Network.
So I got to the point where my share of profits was $40,000 a year. Mm-hmm. It was so low compared to the e-commerce stuff. Mm-hmm. I was going about I was going to say the same thing. I got to do more. I got to do less. Mm-hmm. The dot bomb hit. And I have to tell you, when everything else went to zero, 40,000 a year looked really good.
Yeah. Wow. So you made $500,000 in that deal. That was when you were in college?
No, this was me.
You were working with the college afterwards.
Post-work. So post MBA, I worked for 13 years. And then, so this is 2000, I think 1999 is when we started the program.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, because like when I was in college too, I mean, I was in a college class and I did a presentation. Oh, let me plug in my headphone.
I was going to say, yeah, I was thinking you're reaching for your presentation. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Okay, guys, so now there's no feedback. So when I was in college, around 2006-ish, 2005, I did a presentation in one of my classes, and I teamed up with somebody in the engineering department to create an actual like website, and we created this project. So he came into my class. He wasn't even in my class, and we were building a website that could design cars. And there's a whole bunch of different like platforms, and like you can do this right now. Like if you like the new 2020 Corvettes, like you can go and you can click, oh, I want this spoiler, I want this, or I want to do it without the with the sunroof, or take the top off it, or like there's different like things that you can do. So we were trying to design this customizable car thing, because I like cars, he liked cars. And my teacher, when we went up there and presented, he's like, about 5 years ago, I would have slapped down $10 million on the spot. But right now, with what's going on the internet, like I would, this is not a good idea for you to do right now. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Facebook just launched. There's all these new, the internet just kind of like took off. This was before even Amazon was even a thing. I mean, it was like, I guess
Amazon wasn't making money. 2006.
Yeah, they were
LinkedIn was around.
Yeah,
they started in 2002. They didn't start taking off. They didn't start making money to 2006, right?
Yeah. So my teacher was like all negative about it. And the worst thing, guys, is I got up there and did my presentation after a guy before me was going to create a poop scooping business in Chico, California, because there's a lot of dogs that poop on lawns. And he said, this was the greatest thing ever. This is the greatest. Oh my God, this guy's going to be a millionaire creating a poop scooping business in Chico, California. And I was going to create an online software company that we could eventually like exit, and like we had a plan and all this. He told me it was the worst thing ever. It's just funny how when you go into schools and different teachers and different opportunities, but as an entrepreneur, you got to take control of yourself. Even if someone else doesn't see your vision, your beyond big vision to go out there and influence the world, you got to be able to do it. And clearly you've done that, Mitchell. So that's amazing.
Well,
so
that was only the past. The cool stuff is what I'm doing now.
Yeah. So that's a perfect segue, because that's what we want to know. What are you doing right now that is creating this beyond big influence in today's world?
So what I ended up doing, can I give a little bit of backstory and then it
hits
your mind? Okay. So
whatever you want.
Started
your world.
I appreciate that. The first thing, since it's my world, first thing I want to do in answering your question, so many people are going to tell you what works and what doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Here's the most important thing. You got to figure out who's the audience you serve. And if you know their pain point and you're serving their audience, don't worry about the people who are going to say it doesn't work. Just keep going. Go with your heart, make it happen. So what happened in between 2005 and 2017, I had a book publishing company. And at the time, I'd published over 800 books. What I realized at the end of 2017 that I was serving the wrong audience.
Oh, wow.
So the wrong audience was people who want to write their own books. Because the problem is, if you have the time to write your book, i.e. you're not really an entrepreneur because you think you can write a book. And you also think that the content you're writing is so powerful that the book's going to sell itself. So what happened is I did a Kickstarter at the end of 2016. It hit 250% of goal. I did a TED Talk in 2018. And when I started looking at the world realistically, I sort of said, man, with the Kickstarter, what happened? Oh, by the way, for those that want a trick, how to make a Kickstarter work, you take a product or service you offer in real life and you offer it at a discount. Sort of like taking an unlimited site license for, and selling it for a fixed price. That's pretty reasonable, right? Something a skill that you borrowed. So what I ended up doing at the time, I got the book writing process down to 8 hours. And I got 20 people to actually buy, as part of the Kickstarter, the ability for them to write a book in 8 hours and for us to publish it. That was at the end of 2016. At the end of 2017, I looked at those numbers. And it turned out that only 3 people out of 20 actually wrote their book.
Wow.
That means 17 people couldn't find 8 hours in a 12-month period to do something they paid for that would be beneficial for them.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to make the matters worse. I talked to my friends in the internet marketing space. I talked to my friends in the online learning space, and they both said the same thing. They both said, Mitchell, do you realize that's a 15% utilization rate? That's fantastic. Jesse, that's when I realized I was serving the wrong audience. Because it's not my job to sell somebody something and for them not to use it. So what happened in 2018, I built a writing school. That's when we now can ghostwrite. If you want a book, 4 months from today, 10 hours of your time, we will ghostwrite, publish, distribute, make you an Amazon bestselling author, and you only spend 10 hours. So that's what the business model is now. So what I needed to do once I realized I had a new business model is change my title. The title I created was Global Credibility Expert. And about 2 months after that, I woke up with a vision. It was very simple. It was Napoleon Hill, 500 millionaires think and grow rich. Mitchell Levy, 500 thought leaders being interviewed on credibility. And I, at the time, I had no idea what the book was called. So what I did is I set up a system to do the interviews. It took me a 12-month period on Tuesday and Wednesday afternoons to interview 500 people. And 2 interesting points of time happened. Somewhere around interview 40, I entered flow. I entered a state of mind where I originally created these interviews so somebody would look at me and say, yes, Mitchell, you're a global credibility expert. What I ended up doing instead is in interview 40, I kind of woke up and go, I'm in flow. I don't need people to tell me this anymore. I know who I am. I know what I serve. It was somewhere around interview 475 that I had the biggest vision I've ever had in my life.
Wow.
And what happened, Jesse, is I've always looked for that audience I could play with, that person who I could learn from and work with, that community I could be part of, that when you enter the community, everyone is similar to you in terms of they're credible versus dubious. Where they say stuff and they really mean it. When they promise to do something, they execute on their promise. And I've always looked for that in every place I've gone. And the truth is, it doesn't exist. And what I realized is I need to stop waiting for somebody to create that world. I need to do that.
Yeah.
And so what I've created is and it launches October 9th and 10th, is a membership community called Credibility Nation. And based on the research, there's a book coming out on the 8th called Credibility Nation. And what it does is it redefines what the word credibility is. Because at the moment, credibility is a word, right? It's a way to describe things. Credibility is not a word. Credibility is a way of living. I've got a 10-point system to define whether or not you have credibility or not. It's a verb. And if you're not credible, you're dubious. And so it's a bimodal world. And just to be clear, we sometimes can be credible and step into dubious nation. And we want our friends to tell us it's time to step back out. So the question that you ask yourself.
I just want to ask you this, Mitchell, like dubious, like what does that mean? for the audience?
I would. So the point
It's
is
the opposite of credibility, but
I actually
for them so they get it. You know,
I was trying to. So the answer is at the moment, yes. What I was trying to figure out, Jesse, is because when you're starting a movement, when you're starting in business terms, when you're starting a category, you need an arch rival.
Yeah. Okay.
And the question is, what arch rival? I mean, we could pick political figures or companies or membership groups, right? But what I really wanted to do is I wanted to pick something that we can come up with our own definition of, which I can honestly say, other than saying dubious is the opposite of credible. Okay. I haven't done anything more on that. And I know I need to spend some energy. What I wanted people to recognize is that when you're in Credibility Nation, you could shake somebody's hand and agree to a deal, and contract or not, you deliver on that.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. It's when you tell somebody something that's confidential, you could say it or not, but the person keeps it confidential, right? It is when people tell you they're going to help you, they show up. When I was doing these interviews, 2% of the people just didn't show up and didn't say why. I don't understand that. So Credibility Nation is a way of living. It's not just a way of working, but it's a way of living. And the question I just want you to ask yourself is when you end up, for those of you who are married, those of you who are parents, those of you who are grandparents, what world do you want your children living in? Do you want them living in a world where they're interacting with people who you would consider dubious? Or do you want them growing up? And by the way, I believe Dubious Nation is winning over Credibility Nation 1,000 times over.
Yeah, I would
and
agree.
It's only getting worse.
Yeah. Look at, I mean, I don't want to get too far down a rabbit hole, but look at the presidential candidates. They're like telling each other to shut up, and they're talking shit. All they do is talk shit. Like, how is that credible?
And it's so opposite. Actually, I should have said, what's Dubious Nation? It's that shit show you saw that represented the presidential debates.
Like, this is like my sister. I could argue with my sister better than this on camera. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. And
like this is not a professional people that you can put out there, and like, yeah. So this is what's winning today. Like being like shitty is the best. Being dubious.
Such a bad example of how I would want to live life. How I want my son to live life. My son's not married, no kids. How I want his kids to live life.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, like, if you're going to get somebody to know, like, and trust you, that's like, that works today. I mean,
so by the way, you have now stumbled upon the definition, the updated definition of credibility.
Yeah.
So when the book comes out, you can see the 10 elements. Instead of it being simply right now, the definition of credibility is the demonstration of trustworthiness.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to say is that's wrong. That's only 1/3 accurate. The demonstration is exactly what you just said. It's being known, being likable, and being trustworthy.
Yeah.
And by being known, Jesse, it's not what you maybe might expect. It's not that people know of you.
Yeah.
It's that people know you. Right.
Yeah.
And so if people know you, knowing Christian, here's what I think about. And this is the 4 components that are part of being known. You have a desire to serve others. I understand your commitment. I understand your intent. I understand your integrity.
Yeah.
Right. So if you say you're going to do something, you do something. Like that. Isn't that? I just say when I did the 500 interviews, 2% of the people didn't show up. Let's give you something worse. This is worse. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
I didn't realize when I started doing the interviews that I needed to keep track of what time people came to the interview. I was doing a live show.
Yeah.
So 23% of the 500 people came late.
Oh, wow.
Late being defined as 3 minutes or beyond, to the hour. Because, if you're doing a live show and somebody comes, being on time is between 9 minutes and 4 minutes. Being early is 10 minutes or before. This is for a live show.
So I was late today.
You were well, I don't know about your showing up, but when you and I interacted, we started early enough and we had time to talk. You, however, made me feel uncomfortable because you were late in terms of getting me a link.
Oh yeah.
And I was feeling like I was not going to perform for you. I was not going to deliver for you because I didn't know how to get on the show. So honestly, I was feeling uncomfortable. It felt dubious for me. Absolutely okay. I'm just saying, a lot of times we do this stuff because we don't know better. We haven't been taught better.
Yeah.
But Jesse, here's the worst thing. So 23% came late. 4% of those people I interviewed, 4% of 500 came after the hour for a live show.
Yeah.
Right. So just let me just put it in a different way. Do you think it's credible if you're being interviewed by the global credibility expert on your credibility to come late to a live show?
No, not at all.
And I put my hands up like this, right? I put my hands like who the hell could actually think that's true? And I could only justify it in as much as what I believe is people have been taught incorrectly.
Yeah.
In the industrial age, we've been taught that you need to have 20 meetings a day. They go back to back. And if one person takes longer because you got to make that sale, then all the meetings become late. And that is the sign of importance. That is not the sign of importance. That is a sign of showing that you're a dubious person, because what you don't do is respect those people who are on your calendar that you're meeting with next. Mm-hmm. And we live in a different world today. Your competitor is not just right around the corner; they're right around the world, and they have the same access to your client base as you do. And if you don't show respect for your clients, they're not gonna want to do business with you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, those are all good points, good learning lessons for everybody. And, I think it's about being organized, creating a system, getting everything dialed in, just like for me, like we're trying to get everything dialed in right now. We're moving too fast. I mean, it's just like, but it's also like we're getting started before we're ready to. And sorry about not getting you the link on time, but I meant to get it to you, but No.
But I want to say, let me give you the benefit of the doubt, and I'll tell you why. I've gotten to know Christian Hiscock, your partner, really well.
Yeah.
And exterior, maybe he feels a little bit salesy, but he's not. He's got an amazing heart. He's a good human. He means well. He wants to service others. Mm-hmm. I looked at what you do, and I looked at your course. Mm-hmm. Is it the Incredible Money Machine? I don't know if I got the right.
Yeah, digital sales machine.
Digital sales machine. Yep. I looked at that course, and I looked at how you presented yourself, and you did something that 99.9% of other Facebook internet marketers don't do.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Right. And I'll tell you what that is in a second. But what happened is, when I look at you and I see your intent, I see where you're coming from. It's if you know somebody's not doing something on purpose, that they're doing it because maybe their systems are not aligned, right? You give people the benefit of the doubt because you trust them, right? Mm-hmm. You built up the credibility with how you act and who you are for me to want to do business with you, for me to want to trust you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. And maybe maybe this show itself will help you a little bit, just because you're thinking about things differently.
Yeah.
Just for the audience, let me say what Jesse did, which is spectacular.
Yeah.
He's the first internet marketer, because you hear all these guys say, give me your money, I'll build a Facebook funnel, and then you'll be able to sit on the beach and drink beers and never actually have to do work.
It's easy. It just prints money out of the computer.
Oh my God.
So easy.
That is so wrong. These are dubious people. Stay away from those people. Here's what Jesse said. Jesse said, I won't even talk to you about your funnel until you have a business that's making money. Mm-hmm. And then you gave an approach on how to go about doing that. And by the way, if you're a consultant and you're not making money as a consultant, this is what Jesse says, which is something I would say as well. Find somebody who likes, and trusts you, and offer to work for them for free. And the only cost is getting a video testimonial at the end. Mm-hmm. Take that video testimonial. Go to the next person and say, hey, listen, I like to work for you. I'm not going to tell you what to pay me. The only cost is you pay me whatever you want and give me a video testimony at the end. Now that you got those two video testimonials, then you figure out what you're worth for the next client. Dude, for you to say step one is to have a business before you talk to me, so credible.
Yeah, I appreciate that because like that's how I launched my business. The first guy that I walked in, they were like, I was wearing a suit and they were calling me and my partner the Men in Black because we both had like a black suit. We're trying to like overdo it. And they're like, well, what have you guys done? We're like, well, we built like one website. Here you go. And they're like, oh, well, we want somebody that's done more. So then we just started building websites for free. And then we came back and then then now we're like everybody wanted a website from us because now we had the credibility. We've proven ourselves, So like, yeah, that's all part of the game. And then you got to build and create a business out of it that's long lasting, that is ready to go. Then you can start, building a sales process, then start investing in your business. I mean, because like people come to me and they're like, yeah, well, I need all this, but this is the only amount of money I have because they're not generating money because they have no business. It's like, well, you need to get a business going first before you even move into that step. Because like they would pay us money to help them out, but the expectation is too high that they're going to come out of it thinking they're going to get this, and then they get this, and then they're not happy. So then we're both in a bad spot because I had to grind extremely hard and they had a false expectation. So, I mean, that just came, and I've taken on clients the wrong way. So I've learned. But yeah, I'm up front with people and then they come to me, well, this person said this and this, and then they end up going with that person because they bought the dream to sit on the beach and drink pina coladas. And then they came back to us saying, well, now we got less money and now we're in an even worse spot, but like, what can I do? I'll do anything. It's like, well, you should have listened to me the first time. I was actually telling you the truth, but like, because I wasn't, and that's the problem too. Like the shark and the dubiousness is what wins a lot. So you gotta sift through the sharky dubiousness. So that's pretty awesome.
I was going to say that's why I stopped publishing books of people who write themselves, because their expectations were too high because they thought their content was so amazing it would sell itself. Mm-hmm. Let me give the trick to the audience. The first question I asked in the interview is the most important question to ask. And so what would happen when you signed up, by the way, when you're ready, I'm now booking into April, but when you're ready, I'd love to have you as the interviewer. We charge $1,000 now to create a credibility sizzle reel. So I turn the interviews into a product. For those people I personally invite, and I do 3 to 5 a week for free, we're now booking in April. So by the time you sign up, it'd be April, May, but I'd love to have you do one. So what's interesting is I ask people a question. When you sign up for the interview, you're going to get a 13-minute video on how to prepare. You can look at past interviews. Go to thoughtleaderlife.com. You can look at past interviews. The first question I asked, 98% of people could not answer without a little bit of coaching and support. 98%.
Wow.
And once again, I'll tell you, it goes to education. Mm-hmm. You've been educated incorrectly. So the first question is, what is your CPOP? What is your customer point of pain? Now, CPOP, customer point of pain. So typically, this is something that's 1 to 10 words. It's 1 to 3 seconds to say. If it's done extremely well, it's memorable, it's shareable, and it begs the question, tell me more. And so what happens is, what the way you construct it is, who do you serve? What audience do you serve? And what is the pain point that they're really, it's not that you're selling pain. It's just simply, if you could say something, and this is where most people get it wrong, they give you their value proposition first. Value proposition starts with I or we. Now, doing the interviews, I could tell you there's a percentage of the audience that when you talk to them and I or we are the first things that come out of your mouth, they're kind of thinking, oh, that's a salesperson. And when they do that, they've been successful at blocking out the next 30 seconds that come out of your mouth. So the value proposition is 30 seconds long. They don't hear anything. So the value proposition, and by the way, Jesse, what happened when I was starting the interviews, I started with a CPOP. So I landed on the right thing. I used to say the CPOP was in and the value proposition is out. I want to say I was wrong about that. The value proposition is still important. It's just the third thing you say. So the first thing when you're talking to somebody is, what is that customer point of pain? Mine is very broad. It's humans that want to be seen as credible. What's interesting about that one, it's both a pain point and an aspiration point. Let me tell you what happens when you have a good CPOP. You become a magnet.
Yeah.
Magnets are beautiful for 2 reasons. Those people who need you get attracted to you. Those people who don't need you get repelled.
Yeah.
Knowing who your customers aren't, being able to say no for people who are not customers is probably the best thing you could do for that person who wants to pay you money and they don't even have a product yet.
Yeah, or business.
Unless you want to get into the coaching world of helping them figure out their lives and what the right thing is for them to do and to help them build their business, then build a funnel. Unless you want to be in that business and that's not the business you're in, you can turn them away or recommend they go to somebody to help build their business first and come back to you second.
Okay, amazing. So are those are some of the top things that you learned during these interviews? Like, what's the number one thing that you learned, would you say, during the credibility, interviewing all these thought leaders about credibility?
That's a great question. And I'm still going to fall back on my default. So the book that comes out. So for those people that come to the summit, you'll get a free PDF copy of the book, Credibility Nation.
Yeah.
What you also get is a guy by the name of C. Lee Smith is my first governor of Credibility Nation. And what he did is he wrote a book about sales. And Jesse, you're going to want to see this because his model, he turned sales upside down. And so you got to come to the summit. You'll hear about that.
Yeah.
The thing that I learned was, and I like to put it in a catchphrase, and it's simply show up when you show up. And what that really means is to come early, be prepared, and come with your heart. So in the book, I'm shocked at people who don't come early or people who come late to meetings, people who don't come prepared. 11% of the interviewees, when we started talking and I started asking questions, would say, I haven't done enough. I'm not ready. Can we reschedule? Now, the good part, 83% of those did reschedule and then they knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
Right. So they had the personal integrity. They had the vulnerability to say, I'm not ready. They had the integrity to follow through and come back.
Yeah.
That to me is being prepared.
Yeah.
And the last part is just come with your heart. If I don't see you, if you're not the same person who you talk with your friends, you talk with your spouse, you talk with your business partners, if these are not the same people, if you don't come with your heart and share it everywhere, people won't get to see you. If they don't get to see you, they can't get to know you. They can't get to know you. They can't get to trust you. If they don't trust you, they will not do business with you.
Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, let's talk about the summit, guys. I put a link at the bottom here. I'm going to put it actually so it's bigger here. So it's influencersoft.com/credibility. So go to that link. I'm also going to put it in the comments.
Beautiful.
But I don't know if I can put it in the comments because I'll have to, I'll get it to you guys. Make sure you go to that link, influencersoft.com/credibility. I don't know if they're going to let me put it in the comments from here. So
I always have that issue too. Like when Facebook, when you're live. Yeah.
Because it's a redirect as well. So anyway, guys, go to that link, type it in your browser. I'll make sure that when you're watching this video, if you're watching the replay, you'll actually have like a learn more link on there because we're going to boost this video. And you can just click the link and go and register for this summit. You're going to learn so much about business, success, credibility. I'm going to be on there talking about my software, Influencer Soft, and helping people get the tools and strategies and techniques to be able to launch their business. There's going to be a ton of different people out there. So thanks, John, for posting that link. I don't know if they'll let you do it, but thank you for doing that anyway. John posted it out there. He's always trying to help out. So he's an awesome guy. So
beautiful. Thank you,
John. But go to that link, guys. Make sure you get in this summit. There's going to be a lot of top people. Can you talk about some of the other presentations and talks and the value that they're going to get from this thing?
Absolutely. And it's so funny. Credibility is one of those words that I almost always spell wrong. And for a second when I saw, because you asked me up front, does it work? And then I saw it on the screen. I'm like, wait, is it spelled right? Because the I's and the L's and all that stuff. It's so funny. We've got 25 speakers. It is 2 days. It's a Friday and Saturday. And sign up. You could just come to Jesse's, or I recommend you come to them all because it's 4 segments. So it's basically a half day on each day. The first morning, what we're doing is talking about what is the need for Credibility Nation. I mean, why is the world where it is today, and how do we go about fixing it? And I'm offering a solution. And so I've got speakers who are reinforcing credibility. I will be presenting the results of the 500-person survey first. I've commissioned a firm to do a survey in the United States of credibility in the United States. And that is going to be presented second. And then we've got some reinforcing people coming in reinforcing. We got a VIP lunch for those who want to upgrade and hang out with the speakers. And then in the afternoon, what we're doing is essentially I'm letting people talk about each of the pillars of credibility. And so remember, it's being known, being likable, and being trustworthy. And so the people in the afternoon are talking about what does it mean to be known? How do I get people to know, like, and trust me? How do I get to people to know who I really am? And so we have guys like Jeffrey Hazlett. But if you look at some of the people who are not even super known names, there's a guy I have on that people may not know him unless you're connected to him on LinkedIn, but he has 500 or 600 comments whenever he does a LinkedIn post, right? He's been able to engage the audience in a beautiful way. In the following day, on Saturday in the morning, we're focused on likability. And, I have to tell you, it's and part of the word I like to use, you asked me, Mitchell, are you going to talk about cred dust? One of the words I invented is a word called cred dust. And so I just want to say, if you want to be likable, what you want to do is share the stage with others. Mm-hmm. What is a great way to share the stage? Well, if you learn something really cool, you could say, hey, I just learned something really cool. Or you could just say, you just share it without giving attribution. But the better thing you could do is you learn something cool and you give attribution to the person you're sharing it. Because you know who wins? Everybody, right? The person you personally are sharing because you're seen as somebody who sees other people, mm-hmm. You care about serving others. The person you're sharing it, everyone likes to be quoted. And if you're sharing their content, they get excited about it. And your audience, it's a triple win when you're able to spread cred dust. So sprinkling cred dust basically allows the person you're sprinkling it on to sparkle, as well as you and your audience.
Amazing. Yeah. So if you're helping other people out, they're going to help you. All ships rise with the tide. You're going to come up with some amazing presentations here. So I'm looking at some of the some of the interview with JV Crum of the Conscious Millionaire, leading through COVID, what's going on in the world today, reinforcing being likable as a pillar for credibility, honor the lost virtue, being likable, spreading cred dust, showing respect, creating a conveyor belt of qualified leads, reinforcing. There's a ton of different topics here. Come to this summit, learn from some of the top credibility and influential thought leaders out there. I'm going to be on there as well, talking about telling my story. And well, you're going to interview me. So yeah, telling my story and talking about our software that we have. A lot of you guys already know about it, but yeah, come and check out all these other thought leaders. And, I'm only one person. The more I live, the longer I live, the more I realize I don't know. So there's a lot of people.
It's a beautiful thing to recognize, no matter where you are in the world.
Yeah. That
there's so many amazing people. Trisha Ben is focusing on the empathetic leadership. Mm-hmm. JB Crum has helped millions of entrepreneurs be successful. Evan Dash runs a multiple 8-figure company and has recently got a partner to buy into them. Chuck Garcia. Chuck actually spoke in front of 1 million people. He was the spokesperson for Bloomberg for 8 years. I go through this list. It's hard to. Renee Johnson. I'll give you one. I'll tell you one last Renee Johnson story. Right, just because it's fun. So here's a name that wasn't off the top of my head, somebody who I knew, at least before the interview. I just liked her. We did the interview, the green room conversation, but before and afterwards, beautiful. And when I put all the speakers in place, I had 2 spots open and 8 people to put in. And Renee just reached out and said, Mitchell, why die one of those? And I go, I want you in there. But at this stage, one of the problems I'm having is I have all these speakers and nobody's sharing. Right? They're not getting the word out. And she goes, trust me, Mitchell, I'll take care of you. And so she started before even me saying yes, bringing people to the event. And I'm like, okay, you're in. And then I seen the stuff she does, and she's got me going on live. And, the thing is, the people who care about you being successful, regardless of their personal financial gain, are the people who you just so respect. And when it comes time to giving, so by the way, my guess is next summit, which is in March, she will be one of the first people I ask, because she came to the table, she showed up and made me feel good about myself. And at the end of the day, maybe there's one talk that will drive you, that will get that thing going. I don't want to point out any one person. What I want to say is, you come to Credibility Nation to recognize that your life going forward needs to change. And if it changes in a way that you understand who you serve and how best you serve them, your CPOP, you become a magnet. And that magnet attracts the people into your life that you need to have in your life. And it's just such a beautiful way to live when, if you're living with credibility, you're respecting the people you're interacting with. You get to see their hearts. You not only get to know them, like them, trust them, you could actually say you love them. And how cool would it be to live a life where you could actually say you love the people you work with and interact with them? That's the world I want to live in. That's the world I want you to live in.
That's what it's all about, everybody. Join the summit, influencersoft.com/credibility. Get your spot, enroll, register. It's free to join if you got my link, and it's going to be an awesome time. So when is the summit starts on the 10th, or when is it?
So it's the 9th of October.
9th. Okay.
If you get the VIP the day before on the 8th, so I'm doing a launch. If you sign up now, we'll get you a copy of the book, Credibility Nation, prior to the summit, because I'm running an Amazon campaign on the 8th. And so sign up now. We will send you on the 7th a PDF copy of the book so you can look at it ahead of time. And then you could take that content that you've learned into the summit, and you'll learn so much more. It'll be great. Come join us.
All right. So the link is right here, guys, right there. Just click on it, or
well done, by the way.
Copy that link and paste it in your browser. Or if you're seeing, there you go. You got it. Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah, it's like backwards. So
it's hard to do that
in your brain, like how it's set up. So anyway, guys, join. It's going to be an amazing time on there. I can't wait to be on there. I can't wait for you to interview me on there. It's going to be a lot of great speakers too. I'll be taking notes, learning a lot. I learn a lot every time that I talk to Mitchell. He's just an amazing guy. He has a wealth of knowledge. He's been in the game for a long time. So definitely lock arms with him. So how do they get in touch with you online? You can go and search his name. He doesn't go by this on all the social media channels, but search for his name, Mitchell Levy, online. You can Google him. You can figure out more about him. But here's his website, mitchelllevy360.com, right? That's a good way to get in touch.
Yeah. What I'll say is, like many of us, I've got 200 domains. So those that I think are currently important, I've sort of highlighted Mitchell Levy 360, and it also has links to my social media. And if this is important enough to get on my calendar, you actually have an opportunity to book time directly on my calendar. That's mitchelllevy360.com.
Okay. So if you want to talk to them, connect with them, but definitely number one, come to the summit that we got down below there. We got a lot of things that you guys can do to get more information and start launching your business to make 2020 a good year, even though it's a tough year. It's a tough year.
2020 was a shit show. So what you really want to do is, if you really live in your heart and live in your values and live in your purpose, let's make the rest of 2020 as best as it can be. And let's put you in a position to make 2021 an amazing year.
Sounds great. So Mitchell, what's the last couple words? If you could sum it all up, put a cherry on top, icing on the cake, whatever you want to call it, with what you've been saying today, what would that be?
I want to make a call to action.
Okay.
You can make a change in the world. And that change can be, figure out, when you see Credibility Nation, figure out where you can play. You already heard me talk about a governor of Credibility Nation. Figure out where you can play. Figure out where you could bring value to the world through this vehicle called Credibility Nation. Come to the nation, even if you're at 5 hour $5 a month membership, just the basic stuff, that's great. But I'm sure there's a role you can play, and you can help bring about a world that is just, I'm going to say, the opposite of the world that it feels like we live in today. I know I'm going to do my best for the rest of my life to make that happen. I'm going to share something that I was going to wait to share in the summit. But the way I look at the world is Credibility Nation is losing 1,000-fold to Dubious Nation. Before I die, I will tip the scale. I want you to come tip the scale with me.
All right, let's make it happen, guys. Let's support Mitchell with his massive Beyond Big vision. This is Beyond Big Influence with Jesse Dobeck. Thank you guys for joining. And thank you, Mitchell, for joining us today and dropping a wealth of knowledge for the people. It was incredible. So we'll make sure. Pleasure. Yeah, and make sure, you guys, if you're on here now, make sure you're watching the replay, make sure you share this out. Make sure you tag somebody. I saw when we started, somebody tagged a couple of people to come on to learn this information. Yeah, make sure you tag, share, like, do all that stuff. If you got value today, share it with other people. The world needs this. We all need to get the algorithms triggered for positive things, not just negative, dubious things. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you. Loved it. That was such a good wrap up. Great job.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys in the next episode. Until then, go out there and create some Beyond Big influence in your life and other people to make the world more positive. See you guys soon.
Incredible.
Make it incredible. Bye, guys. Take care.